Uh, you guys should sit in the middle there. I don't know why there's a line in the middle. Can you close the door for me? So please update your reading logs while I do attendance. So this is core. What core number is this?
Yeah.
This is 80.
All right. So Inbe, Lauren, Stella, CJ, James, Harry, Albert, Darren, Phoebe, Jim, Ken, Ava, Minna, Ethan, Mark, Chloe, Cindy. Okay, so today's goal is to see how characters are complicated. And so I want you to think about, I want to tell you a story about a student I had years ago. In class, they were extremely disrespectful, rude, always bothering the other kids, disrupting things. When they sat on the carpet, they would do this. All the time. Right? That student caused me a lot of stress. Right? But then during the conference, right, during the parent-teacher conference, they came in. There was a boy. He came in with his mom. And around his mom, he was this perfect little angel. Right? He came in, he bowed, right, like this far. Right? A normal day, if mom's not around, he doesn't even look at me. He doesn't say, hey, Mr. Rago, no. Right to his desk. But when mom's there, right? So it's almost like it's two different people. Right? So I could say that he's complicated. Right? Because we have these two types of behavior that are in opposition. One is good, one's bad. So there's conflict there. So when we think about the word complicated, right, it has many meanings. Right? So I asked a student this morning, I said, how do you say complicated in Korean? And they said, 복잡. And I said, okay. So give me an example of 복잡. Can you use it in a sentence? Yeah. The classroom is complicated? But the meaning is a little different there, right? It means like it's kind of stuffy. Things are close together. Like people ask me, like, did you like living in Seoul? I say, no. Right? Everything's too close together. People, buildings. So that's not what we mean by characters are complicated. What we mean by complicated is that there are two different things going on, two or more, right? Like, in one situation the character's like this, and in another it's like this. Like Rob, you remember Rob from The Tiger Rising? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was a very closed person, right? He kept all his feelings inside, but when he talked to Sistine, James, when he talked to Sistine, he would tell her things. He was very open. And later he would ask himself, why did I tell her all of that? Right? So that's what I mean by complicated. The character has, there are many traits, right? Many behaviors, and some of them don't match, right? There's some unevenness, right? And that causes the complication. Okay? So we're going to pay attention to this because it's often what we learn from a story comes from ways the character's complicated, the obstacles they face, and the way that they overcome them obstacles. Right? So that's how we learn things from the story. So we're going to go back to yesterday's story with Lupe. Right? You remember Lupe?
Yeah.
This is how we spell her name, by the way, Lupe. So we came up, we read the beginning yesterday, we came up with some ideas about the kind of person Lupe is. Anybody remember? Albert?
Good at chess, spelling.
She's good at chess, good at spelling, so she is,
Smart.
and you can say smart. What else? Talented. With academic things, right? Shy. That right in the beginning it said she spoke in whispers. So she always talks like this. What else?
Oh, she's not good at sport.
Not good at sports. Right, that was her obstacle. Not good at sports. What else about her character? What's her personality like? What kind of person is she? Well, she's the chess champion, spelling champion, straight A's, perfect attendance. Do you guys know this?
Wow.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
When I read this the first time, I thought, oh, I'm glad she's not my cousin. I'm glad she's not my neighbor, because my mom would never stop talking about it.
Mom's friends, daughters, or cousins?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's not cousin.
I don't understand.
But this is just mom's friend's son,
Yeah.
right? And you have
It's almost
Omtindal,
Yeah.
right? That's what I thought when I first read about Lupe. She does really well in school. But then we learn that she has some challenges playing sports, doing anything physical. So what we're going to do, we're going to read more, we're going to look for ways that she's complicated. We're going to look for any characteristics we can add to what we learned about yesterday. Okay? So I'm going to read bigger chunks this time, and I'll stop in the middle. I'm going to ask you, what new things have we learned about Lupe? Okay, so where is Minu? Minu? What am I going to ask you when I stop reading? What am I going to say? Let me help you out. What new things have we learned about Lupe? All right, so as you listen, that's what I want you to pay attention to. New things. What new characteristics? What new qualities? Okay, what else do we learn about her? Ready to go? Okay. So we ended yesterday. She found 5 marbles that she liked from her brother's collection. So her brother's a marble player too. She smoothed her bedspread and practiced shooting. Softly at first, so that her aim would be accurate. The marble rolled from her thumb and clicked against the targeted marble. But the target wouldn't budge. She tried again and again. Her aim became accurate, but the power from her thumb made the marble move slowly, only an inch or 2. Then she realized that the bedspread was slowing down the marbles. You know what a bedspread is? Everybody? How do you say bedspread in Korean?
Oh.
Ibu?
침대 시트.
Right, but a bedspread is a little thicker.
After
It's
that.
Ibu. Ibu, is that it? Ibu?
After the sleep. Oh.
It's like the one that goes on top, right? It's a little thick. So the marbles they're not moving very quickly across the top. She also had to admit that her thumb was weaker than the neck of a newborn chick. She looked out the window. The rain was letting up, but the ground was too muddy to play. She sat cross-legged on the bed, rolling her 5 marbles between her palms. Yes, she thought, I can play marbles, and marbles is a sport. At that moment, she realized that she only had 2 weeks to practice. The playground championship, the same one her brother had entered the previous year, was coming up. She had a lot to do. 2 weeks. To strengthen her wrists, she decided to do 20 push-ups on her fingertips. 5 at a time. 1, 2, 3, she groaned. By the end of the first set, she was breathing hard, and her muscles burned from exhaustion. She did 1 more set and decided that was enough push-ups for the first day. That night over dinner, Mrs. Medrano, this is her mother, said, Honey, you should see Lupe's thumb. Huh? Mr. Medrano said, wiping his mouth and looking at his daughter. Show your father. Do I have to? An embarrassed Lupe asked. Go on. Show your father. Reluctantly, Lupe raised her hand and flexed her thumb. You could see the muscle. The father put down his fork and asked, What happened? Dad, I've been working out. I've been squeezing an eraser. Right? So she's been sitting at home with an eraser, just squeezing it, making her thumb. Yeah, it's real hard to squeeze.
It's true.
So Dad says, why? I'm going to win and enter the marble championship. Her father looked at her mother and then back at his daughter. When is it, honey? This Saturday. Can you come? The father had been planning to play racquetball with a friend on Saturday, but he said he would be there. He knew his daughter thought she was no good at sports, and he wanted to encourage her. He even rigged some lights in the backyard so she could practice after dark. He squatted with one knee on the ground, entranced by the sight of his daughter easily beating her brother. So in just 2 weeks, she's turned into a marble monster.
Is that knowing the rules?
Yeah. So when I read this, okay, what can we add? What can we add here?
She's passionate and hardworking.
Okay, so passionate, hardworking. Good. Now, when I read this, I also thought she's pretty competitive. Right? She's got that inner fire. She really wants to do well. Okay? So I'm going to write competitive. And some of the reasons I think she's competitive is because, like the push-ups, she's doing Bruce Lee push-ups. Right? For marbles. Okay, she's doing the push-ups. She's working on her thumb. She's squeezing that eraser. Okay? She's practicing after dark. She's practicing with her brother. She's beating her brother. Right? So I feel that she's competitive. Right? She wants to win. Yes?
Eager to achieve her goal.
Eager. Good. Eager to achieve her goal. We'll say eager. Now, I'm going to continue. And this time when I read, I'm going to ask you, what do we learn about her that suggests she's complicated? Okay. The day of the championship began with a cold, blustery sky. The sun was a silvery light behind slate clouds. I hope it clears up, her father said, rubbing his hands together as he returned from getting the newspaper. They ate breakfast, paced nervously around the house, waiting for 10 a.m. to arrive. And they walked 2 blocks to the playground, though Mr. Medrano wanted to drive so Lupe wouldn't get tired. She signed up and was assigned her first match on baseball diamond number 3. So imagine they're at a big field and there are many baseball diamonds, right? So she's on number 3. You know what a baseball diamond is? Is it a rock? No, right? It's a field, right? This is the baseball diamond. Right? Home plate, first base, second base, third base. Right? Here's the field. So the diamond means that spot, right? The infield. So she's on number 3. Lupe, walking between her brother and father, shook from the cold, not nerves. She's not nervous at all. She took off her mittens, and everyone stared at her thumb. Someone asked, "How can you play with a broken thumb?" Her thumb was so big and muscular, they thought it was broken. They thought it was swollen. Right? Amazing. Lupe smiled and said nothing. She beat her first opponent easily and felt sorry for the girl because she didn't have anyone to cheer for her. Except for her sack of marbles, she was all alone. Lupe invited the girl, whose name was Rachel, to stay with them. She smiled and said, "Okay." The 4 of them walked to a card table in the middle of the outfield, where Lupe was assigned another opponent. She also beat this girl, a 5th grader named Yolanda, and asked her to join the group. They proceeded to more matches and more wins, and soon there was a crowd of people following Lupe to the finals to play a girl in a baseball cap. The girl seemed dead serious. She never even looked at Lupe. Okay, so we're going to stop here for today. And I want you to talk about what we learned about Lupe in this second section that's new, right? In the first reading, we learned that she's real competitive. We saw that through our practice. In the tournament, what else do we learn about Lupe? Turn and talk. 30 seconds.
Ego. She's super competitive.
And the voice is crowd here.
Okay, so when you see me do this, like when you guys talk and I do this, it means you got to stop talking and do this. All right, so I don't like yelling. I'll just do this. When you see it, you stop talking and do the same thing, and everyone will be quiet real quick. So what else do we learn about Lupe in this second part? Ava? She's confident. Chloe?
She's kind and respectful.
Confident. And then I'm going to write in a new color. Kind and respectful. How do you know this, Chloe?
Because she asked to join the group
So the people that she beat, she asked them to join her group. Right? So this jumped out at me because when I think of someone who's really competitive, I don't always think they're going to be really nice. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking if someone's really competitive, after they win, they might just, step on the person's thumb and walk away. Say, who's next? James Dew, you're next. Get over here. Right? So with this kindness and the respect that she shows to her competitors, to her opponents, with her competitive nature, I think this makes her complicated a little bit. Because we have this, hey guys, what are you doing? That's not important. This kindness, the respect that she shows with her competitive drive, it makes her complicated. Right? And this is what I noticed in this part of the reading. Okay? And this is what I want you guys to think about today as you continue to read. And I have, before we move on, take 30 seconds. I want you to think to yourself, how is a character in your book complicated? So remember, we're looking for, those traits that kind of clash. Like shy but confident. Right? So there are two things that make somebody interesting. Right? So think for 30 seconds. How is your character complicated? Okay, tell the person next to you. How is your character complicated?
There's no character.
All right. A little more energy. This way, not like this. Good. So, remember, when we say they're complicated, we're looking for some contrast in the character, right? In who they are. Right? Now, to help you develop those ideas, I have a small little handout that I want you to put in your reader's notebook. Okay, and there are sentences here that you can fill in today in your notebook as you continue to read. For example, I'm realizing something different about my character. Or on the one hand, my character is competitive and eager to succeed, but on the other hand, she's also really kind. Right, so that's what we're looking for. And there's some language here on this little handout. You take one, pass it around. That'll go in your reader's notebook. Okay. I want you to try to use some of that today as you stop and jot. Okay. Now, how many of you are finished your books? Many of you. So you're going to start a new book now, right? You already started one? Perfect. is there anybody that's finished their books, needs a new one, and cannot find one in our classroom library? Okay, so maybe that's the first thing to do, okay? If that's you, start by checking our classroom library for your next book. If you don't find anything, we'll send it to the library. Okay? So, head back to your tables. Remember, your reading and writing, your stopping and jotting. Okay, and I'll be around at the conference with a few of you. Get started. Friday. Good. You get 2 done this week? That's totally awesome.
I thought you were reading
Do that to me.
this.
I want you to look here
The
first.
What
If
do
you
you
don't
mean?
find one, then you can go to the library. But look here first.
You're not reading holes? You mean the wrinkle in time?